So I just wanted to underscore that point, that the economy is going through a phase in which the energy space is very, very tricky. And there is no running away from that. And people, good people have wanted to invest in that, and we initially were more than keen to partner with them. But we worry about the fact that as to how will they get their money back when the government at this stage does not seem to have enough funds to service its existing obligations on power sector.
Well, now, in fact, this is not the first time we've heard the E word today too, and the concerns, and we just heard from the CEO from Atlas Honda how he had to readjust his figures to actually look at a 60% increase year on year in the costs. I do have to make a disclaimer here. OPEC is one of my biggest clients, so I understand this a bit. But we're looking at, yes, the rising cost of energy, but also within the country some of the issues here, and talking about the situation with the power sharing load and that. But just how scared are the banks to come into any industry, which of course will all need energy, the way they can continue? Is that a huge obstacle? Shahzad, maybe if I can ask you, I think you mentioned the energy issue as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no denying we have an energy issue, and we have to solve that. If we don't solve that, but my premise was that there's money available for good projects. The fact that your project is highly dependent on energy, which again, different projects have dependency levels.
A lot of the bigger projects
and the geography where you are located and all that, I'll make that project not a good project. So it's a very broad statement, but it picks up all those issues in a nutshell. I think the energy crisis is something we have to solve, and it has to be solved very fast. And if you really get deep into it, I think there are a lot of issues, not about just incremental capacity, it's about the existing capacity and making most use of it. I think that's being lost in this whole debate that's going on, because from what I'm no energy expert, but from what I know, there's a lot of installed capacity that's not being used to the fullest for a lot of breakdown within the systems and politics. And I think we should overcome that very fast, otherwise you won't find good projects. The other thing I think about investors, and if I look at all this August gathering, I think they're all very talented CFOs. I think banks, CFOs and investors should know which bank to go for what. I can't profess here to do everything for everybody in this room, because I'm a Barclays bank. I have certain niche, I have certain area of expertise where I want to be the best if I'm not already the best. Otherwise, there's no reason for me to be in Pakistan. On the other hand, to my right are two people from two different sectors, from two different areas, Islamic banking and large local corporates. So they all have expertise, and they all have become experts in what they're doing. And I think picking the right banks for the right projects is very, very important. And I think sometimes that gets lost. And also banks should learn from their past mistake, not to have a herd mentality. I think what we sometimes get into is because MCB has done something, three other banks want to lend to that same sector, and then they go after the second and the third tier, investor, not realizing that the fundamentals have changed. There's a first mover advantage. Maybe they are geographically located. Maybe they have a better agreement with the end customer. So I think those are the things that one really have to watch out, both from bank side and from the investor side.
Now, government projects here in the region too.
Sorry, not investor, but from
in fact, let me just stay with that for a minute, because a lot, and since our audience is mainly CFOs here, we tend to know what we will want from a bank and what people are looking for. But as you brought that up there, what do you want the industry to be bringing? What are your expectations coming from the chief financial officers, from the industry? What do they have to have ready before they engage with you, take your time, waste your time perhaps, or maybe, as you say, go to the wrong bank? Should I pick up on that one?
Sure. I think for us, the biggest issue is transparency. For the simple reason that, people come and ask for money and they don't divulge the entire set of problems that they want the money for. Unfortunately, over the years, it's come to a point where banks tend to discount X% of what a customer says, because in general, the transparency in their numbers is not there. And I tell my clients that you have to treat a banker like a doctor. I mean, you have to tell me your problems before I can solve them.
And we've got to trust you on top of
Exactly.
that.
So, well,
Trust me, I'm a banker. We like that, yes.
so overall, I think for us, transparency has been the biggest problem, and because no bank wants surprises. I mean, if I know I have a problem, I will try to solve it. But if my portfolio has hidden surprises, that's the worst thing, which could affect the bank. Because if you get taken out by something which you had not expected, it tends to actually have an effect on the entire industry from which if you look at say textiles, they've got a bad name in the banking sector, not because all textiles are bad, because there were some issues with some units which did not divulge information.
But also they couldn't have known the cotton price might go up or down as well. So there are other issues outside of their control.
Well, there are, but the thing is that a lot of it was tax-related issues. There are various issues, and there is a tendency to not divulge your actual numbers to a bank.
Irfan, within the Islamic banking sector, are you encountering the same problems?
Obviously, that problem is there. Transparency is one area, and I feel that with this audience here and the Institute of Chartered Accountants, they should really have more stringent standards on the audit practice. There are a lot of firms here, on whom the bankers would rely heavily, the top firms. But there are some firms, unfortunately, where even if the accounts are correct, the reliance factor would not come automatically. So the credibility really, the institute has to work harder in terms of increasing the credibility of the chartered accountant firms, to give the bankers that comfort that whatever is in the audited account is at least, if not full truth, at least half the truth. Because sometimes, the difference between your actual books and what is actually stated is not like 30%, 40%, 50% different. It's many multiple different. And one of the reasons for that is a very, I would say a difficult taxation system in the country. And, Institute of Chartered Accountants is one right place who can actually influence the government to streamline things as well. Instead of doing a lot of documentation, make it easier for people so that they can actually disclose their numbers as well. One of the problems in Pakistan, which you feel is not there in the Western world, is that people are shy of disclosing their wealth for whatever reason. Maybe it's a law and order situation or whatever. But you find a list of people who are the top billionaires in the world published elsewhere. Here, people would not want to make their wealth known as well. So as a result, what happens is that if you make a lot of money, you hide it. So that transparency is really the key problem.
Okay. Shahzad, do you want to come in here? Yeah.
I think just backing up to the points what Amir and Irfan have said, I think, you hear about the 4 C's of credit and all that, 5 C's at times, but I think that it's what I call CTDT. It's basically consistency, trust, transparency, and disclosure. And if you have those 4 key elements, I think you really can have a very, very healthy relationship between the lender and the borrower. I think to the point what Amir was saying, treat us like a doctor. But to do that, let's face it, because being on the other side, if I come and tell him I have a problem, the banks really then have to step in. Yeah. And I think that trust factor has to develop. And that trust factor will only develop over time with the passage of time where both sides will actually come together and show that. So there has to be that trust factor, which is the paramount thing to make this relationship working.